the sound of ceramic shattering against the floor. That's what changed everything. Not gunfire, not explosions, just a coffee cup breaking in a war room at 3:47 in the morning, and one woman's hands trembling as she bent to pick up the pieces while 50 Navy SEALs were about to die. Go make coffee, not sit here pointing at maps. Colonel Carter Reynolds, red-faced, veins bulging in his neck, voice like a sledgehammer, and Lieutenant Willow Matthews, 28 years old, small-framed in an oversized uniform, shoulders hunched behind thick-rimmed glasses, stepped back, bowed her head, apologized with her silence. Around her, 15 officers watched, some with pity, most with mockery. "Fresh meat," someone muttered. "Thinks she's playing a video game." But here's what they didn't see. While they spent 40 minutes arguing, she'd been quietly marking 7 points on the terrain map. While they debated extraction routes, she'd been counting seconds between radio updates. While they dismissed her as coffee girl, she'd been calculating ammunition burn rates and enemy advance patterns. And she'd whispered to Sergeant Hazel Bennett, quiet enough that no one else heard, "If they don't change direction in 6 minutes, 12 men will die." Her hands collected the broken ceramic pieces, one by one, arranging them by size on a napkin, a habit she couldn't shake, muscle memory from years of organizing equipment, ammunition, anything that needed precision. She folded that napkin with military corners, crisp, exact, the kind of fold that took thousands of repetitions to perfect. Sergeant Bennett noticed. Her eyes narrowed slightly, but she said nothing. The war room pulsed like a living thing, 23 personnel cycling through, radio operators hunched over encrypted channels, intelligence analysts updating threat assessments, medical staff on standby, and dominating the north wall, that massive tactical display, 15 feet wide, showing real-time satellite imagery. Red hostile markers clustered like angry wasps around one blue icon. Shadow 2, 50 men. Grid 428. "We need conventional extraction," Captain Crawford insisted, stabbing his finger at the map. "Route Alpha 7, straight line, maximum speed." "Too exposed," Major Foster countered. "We'd lose air superiority." "Then what do you suggest?" Reynolds snapped. "We've got 50 of America's finest about to get overrun, and you're worried about air corridors." The argument spiraled, each officer certain of their solution, each solution missing something critical, and in the corner near the coffee station, supposedly out of the way, Willow stood, eyes tracking every movement on that display, mind processing the battlefield like she'd done it 1,000 times before. Because she had. The radio crackled, static, then a voice, strained, professional, but carrying that edge that came when death stopped being hypothetical. "Viper Base, this is Shadow 2. We're down to 40% ammunition. Request immediate support. Over." "Shadow 2, Viper Base. Stand by, working your extract now. Out." Willow's lips moved silently. Counting. 38 seconds since last contact. Enemy advance rate suggested 3.2 minutes until optimal firing position. If the SEALs held current location, ammunition would last 7.6 minutes at defensive consumption rate. The canyon system to the northwest offered. "Matthews." Reynolds' voice made her flinch. "Since you're just standing there, make yourself useful. Get coffee for everyone. 8 cups. Adults are working here." Heat flooded her cheeks. Captain Iris Morgan, the base medical officer, opened her mouth to object, then thought better of it. "Yes, sir." Willow's voice barely carried across the room. She moved to the coffee station, hands steady despite the humiliation. As she measured grounds, she watched that tactical display in her peripheral vision. The enemy was repositioning, not random movement, coordinated, professional. They were setting up a kill box. And no one else saw it. She poured water, leveled the grounds, started the cycle. While it brewed, she pulled paper napkins from the dispenser, began folding them one by one, Military corners, perfect creases. Sergeant Bennett drifted over. "You okay?" she whispered. Willow nodded without looking up. "They're making a mistake." "Which one?" "Route Alpha 7. There's a canyon system at grid 428. Perfect ambush terrain. Soviet-era maps show elevation changes that aren't on our current displays." Bennett's eyes widened. "How do you know about Soviet maps?" The coffee maker beeped. "I read a lot." Willow carried the tray into the war room. Reynolds snatched a cup without acknowledgement. Foster grimaced at the heat. Crawford ignored her entirely. As she set down the last cup, she paused. The tactical display showed Shadow 2's position relative to terrain. Her mind overlaid Soviet topographical data she'd studied 3 years ago. Different war, same mountains. "Sir," she said quietly, "if I may." "You may not," Reynolds cut her off. "This is a tactical briefing for senior staff." "But the terrain at 428. "Lieutenant Matthews." Reynolds turned to face her fully. His face was crimson. "Do you have tactical operations experience I'm not aware of?" Silence fell across the room. 23 pairs of eyes turned toward them. "No, sir," Willow said. "Do you have forward combat deployment experience?" "I." "Do you have any experience beyond pushing papers and making coffee?" Each question was a hammer blow, designed to humiliate, designed to establish dominance. Willow's jaw tightened. "No, sir." "Then keep your mouth shut and let the professionals work." He turned back to the display. Conversation resumed. Willow retreated to her corner, cheeks burning, but her eyes never left that screen. 4 minutes later, the radio erupted. Viper Base, contact. We are taking fire from 3 directions at grid 428. I say again, contact at 428. Multiple casualties. Request immediate close air support." The war room exploded into chaos. Reynolds slammed his palm on the table. "How did they get positioned there?" "Ambush point," Foster said grimly. "They knew we'd come through that route." Willow's whisper was so quiet only Hazel heard it. "I told you." General Arthur Blackwood descended from the elevated observation platform. 68 years old, 36-year career, 4 stars on his collar. He said nothing, but his presence added weight to already crushing pressure. "Options," Reynolds demanded. "Give me options now." "We can vector Apache support from the south." "Too slow." "Then we go with fast movers, F-18s from the carrier." "Danger close with friendlies in contact. We'd risk blue on blue." The argument spiraled. Willow watched the tactical display update in real time. Red markers multiplying, blue marker static, ammunition count dropping. Her hands clenched. She'd seen this before. Different country, different team, same fatal hesitation while men died. 8 Rangers, their faces still haunted her dreams. Not again. She didn't think, didn't plan, just moved, crossed the war room floor, stepped directly in front of General Blackwood and Colonel Reynolds. "Sir, permission to speak." The room went silent, every conversation stopped, every head turned. Reynolds' face went from red to purple. "Lieutenant, I'm warning you." "Let her speak." Blackwood's voice was quiet, calm, absolute authority. Willow pulled a folded paper from her pocket, the napkin she'd been working on, unfolded it. 7 marked positions, coordinates, timings, alternative routes. "Sir, the enemy has established a 3-sided kill box using the canyon terrain at grid 428. They anticipated our conventional extraction route, but there's a way out. The Soviet maps from 1985 show a dry riverbed system here," she pointed. "Current satellite imaging doesn't show it because of vegetation overgrowth, but it's there. Width sufficient for single-file movement. Runs northwest for 2 kilometers. Exits at grid 431, outside their containment perimeter." Reynolds started to object. Blackwood raised one hand. Silence. Continue. We coordinate a three-phase extraction. Phase 1. Artillery diversion at grid 427 to draw enemy focus south. Phase 2. Shadow 2 moves through the riverbed using night vision. Radio silence. Appears to vanish from enemy radar. Phase 3. Apache gunships hold at grid 432. When Shadow 2 clears the riverbed, they provide covering fire for final extraction to LZ Falcon. She laid out the napkin, every coordinate marked, every timing calculated, every contingency planned. Total operation time, 18 minutes. Expected casualties, 0. Success probability, 92%. The room was so quiet you could hear the ventilation system humming. Reynolds found his voice. This is absurd. We can't trust tactical planning from someone who... Colonel, Blackwood's voice cut like a blade, shut up. He leaned forward, studied the napkin, studied Willow's face. Those eyes that had stopped trembling, that jaw set with absolute certainty. You're sure about this riverbed? Yes, sir. I studied those Soviet maps during mission prep 3 years ago. Different operation, same mountain range. The topography hasn't changed. Only our imaging systems missed it. And you calculated all this while making coffee? Yes, sir. Blackwood looked at her for 5 long seconds, then nodded once. Do it. Sir, you can't be serious, Reynolds started. I'm deadly serious, Colonel. Lieutenant Matthews, you have operational command for this extraction. Coordinate with all necessary assets. You have 18 minutes. Make it work. Willow felt the weight of every eye in that room, the mockery, the doubt, the disbelief. But she also felt something else, the weight of 50 lives depending on her, and the absolute certainty that she could carry it. Yes, sir. Sergeant Bennett, I need you on comms coordination. Captain Morgan, prep medical for potential casualties anyway. Lieutenant Brooks, I need direct line to Artillery Command and Apache Squadron immediately. Her voice had changed, no longer quiet, no longer apologetic. Command voice, the voice of someone who'd done this before, the voice of someone who knew exactly what needed to happen. Brooks hesitated, looked at Reynolds. Reynolds' face was stone. Lieutenant Brooks, Willow's voice sharpened. We have 17 minutes and 40 seconds. Move. He moved. The next 18 minutes would prove whether dignity spoke through actions or disappeared into silence. Whether one woman's tactical genius could save 50 men from a trap that military professionals had walked them directly into. Whether anyone would ever underestimate her again. 17 minutes, 50 lives, 1 chance. Willow moved through the war room like water finding its path, purposeful, unstoppable, every step calculated, every second accounted for. Brooks, I need that Artillery Command line now. Working on it. Now, Lieutenant, not working on it now. Her voice carried an edge that made him move faster. The room watched, some skeptical, some curious, all waiting to see if the coffee girl would crash and burn under actual pressure. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Fire control, this is FOB Viper Actual. Willow took the handset Brooks passed her, her hand steady, her voice clear. I need fire mission designated Hammer Strike, grid 427, high explosive, pattern Delta, time on target 4 minutes 30 seconds, confirm. Static, then, Viper Actual Fire Control, confirm grid 427 He, pattern Delta, tot 430. That's danger close to friendly forces. Request confirmation of clearance. Clearance confirmed. This is diversion fire to enable extraction. Shadow 2 will be displaced before impact. Execute mission. Out. She handed the headset back to Brooks, turned to Bennett. Get me Shadow 2 Actual, encrypted channel, now. Bennett's fingers flew across the communications console. 15 seconds. The encrypted line crackled to life. Shadow 2 Actual, this is Viper Command. Authenticate Alpha Charlie 7. A pause, then a voice, rough, exhausted. Viper Command Shadow 2 authentication confirmed. Who am I talking to? Lieutenant Matthews, tactical coordinator. I'm getting you out, but you need to trust me completely for the next 15 minutes. Can you do that? Another pause. She could almost hear him thinking, weighing options, calculating survival odds. Lieutenant, we're pinned down. 3 directions, down to 35% ammo. 2 KIA, 4 wounded. So yeah, I can trust you. What do you need? 2 dead, 4 wounded. The weight settled on her shoulders, but she didn't let it slow her down. Shadow 2, at my mark, you're going to hear artillery impact 300 meters south of your position. When that happens, enemy forces will reorient to investigate. You'll have a 60-second window. Your 11 o'clock position, there's vegetation overgrowth. Underneath is a dry riverbed. Soviet-era topography, not on your current maps. You sure about that, Lieutenant? I'm certain. The riverbed runs northwest for 2 clicks, wide enough for single file. You move through it on night vision. Radio silence. You're going to disappear from enemy radar completely. When you exit at grid 431, Apache gunships will be holding position to provide covering fire for final extract to LZ Falcon. Silence on the line. She could feel his doubt, his hesitation, his desperate hope that she was right. That's one hell of a plan, Lieutenant. If that riverbed doesn't exist. It exists. I've studied those maps for 3 years. It's there, but you need to move fast. 60 seconds from artillery impact to entry. 30 minutes through the riverbed. 0 radio communication while inside. Can you do it? If the alternative is dying here, yeah, we can do it. Good. Mark time. You have 3 minutes 40 seconds until artillery impact. Prep your wounded for movement. Assign point man for riverbed navigation. Confirm when ready. Viper Command Shadow 2 will be ready, and Lieutenant. Yes. You better be right about this. I am. Viper Command out. She handed the headset back, turned to find the entire room staring at her. Reynolds looked like he'd swallowed something bitter. General Blackwood watched with unreadable eyes, but she couldn't afford to care about their opinions now. Captain Morgan, I need medical standing by at LZ Falcon. 4 wounded, 2 critical. Flight time from extract point is 8 minutes. Have your team ready. Already moving. Morgan grabbed her med kit and headed for the door. Brooks, get me Apache Squadron lead. He connected the line without hesitation this time. Viper Command, this is Demon Lead. Go ahead. Demon Lead, I need you holding position at grid 432. Low altitude, weapons hot. You'll receive extract coordinates when Shadow 2 clears the riverbed system. Estimate 28 minutes from now. Your mission is covering fire and escort to LZ Falcon. Threat assessment. 300 plus hostiles, small arms and RPGs. Expect heavy engagement. Viper Command Demon Lead. Copy all. Will be in position. Those boys better be worth it. They're worth it. Viper Command out. Willow checked the wall clock. 2 minutes. Artillery impact in 2 minutes. She pulled up the tactical display, zoomed in on grid 427. The enemy positions were clear, clustered, confident, about to get a very violent surprise. Sergeant Bennett appeared at her elbow, quiet, calm. You've done this before. It wasn't a question. Not exactly this, but similar 3 years ago, different circumstances. The operation you mentioned, the one where 8 Rangers died. Willow's hands clenched. Yeah, that one. We hesitated, debated, followed protocol, and 8 men died while we followed protocol. I promised myself I'd never let that happen again. Bennett nodded slowly. That's why you remember Soviet maps from 3 years ago. I remember everything from that mission, every map, every coordinate, every decision that killed them. And I learned. I studied. I made sure I'd never be in a position where I couldn't save people because I didn't know enough. And now you're saving 50. If this works, It'll work. 1 minute. The room held its breath, every eye on that tactical display. Red markers still clustered around blue, ammunition count still dropping, medical evac still standing by. 30 seconds. Willow watched the seconds tick down, her heart rate steady, her breathing controlled. 3 years of preparation for this moment. 3 years of studying maps and rehearsing scenarios and making absolutely certain she'd never feel that helpless again. 10 seconds. Reynolds moved closer, stopped next to General Blackwood, whispered something. Blackwood didn't respond, just watched that display. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. On the satellite imagery, Grid 427 erupted, artillery shells impacting in precise pattern, explosions blooming across the screen, enemy positions scattering, exactly as planned. Willow keyed the encrypted channel to Shadow 2. Shadow 2, Viper command, execute, move now. Shadow 2 moving. On the display, the blue marker began shifting, slowly, deliberately, toward the 11 o'clock position, toward vegetation that looked solid but concealed a riverbed that hadn't been on anyone's maps except Soviet cartographers from 1985 and one American lieutenant who'd memorized every detail 3 years ago. The blue marker reached the vegetation line and vanished from the display. The room erupted. Where did they go? We lost the signal. Did they? Quiet, Willow's voice cut through the panic. They're in the riverbed. Vegetation canopy blocks satellite tracking. They're exactly where they're supposed to be. Radio silence for the next 28 minutes. When they emerge at grid 431, they'll reacquire signal. Until then, we wait. Wait, Reynolds' voice dripped with disbelief. We just lost contact with 50 SEALs and you want us to wait. We didn't lose contact, Colonel. They're executing the plan. The riverbed blocks satellite imaging. That's what makes it perfect. The enemy can't track them either. They've effectively vanished. Or they're dead in a non-existent riverbed, and we just killed them by following advice from someone with zero tactical experience. The words hung in the air. Accusation, condemnation, the weight of 50 lives and one lieutenant's certainty. Willow turned to face Reynolds directly, met his eyes, didn't blink. The riverbed exists, sir. Shadow 2 is alive, and in 26 minutes they're going to emerge at grid 431 and we're going to extract them. You can doubt me. You can question me. But for the next 26 minutes this is my operation and we're going to see it through. And if you're wrong, then I'll spend the rest of my life carrying 50 more names. But I'm not wrong. General Blackwood spoke for the first time since giving her operational command. How certain are you, Lieutenant? 100%, sir. Not 90%, not 95. No, sir. 100% that riverbed is there. I've studied those maps hundreds of times. I know the terrain better than I know my own base layout. Shadow 2 is moving through it right now, and they're going to make it. Blackwood studied her face, those eyes that had gone from trembling to absolute steel, that jaw set with unshakable certainty. He nodded once, then we wait. 26 minutes, in a war room where time moved like molasses, where every second felt like an hour, where doubt and certainty wrestled for control. Willow stood at that tactical display, watching, waiting, counting seconds in her head, calculating movement rates, visualizing Shadow 2 moving through darkness, single file, silent, trusting her completely. 15 minutes passed, then 20, then 25. At 27 minutes, 30 seconds, Willow keyed the line to Demon Lead. Demon Lead, Viper command. Stand by for extract coordinates. Shadow 2 should emerge in 30 seconds. Demon Lead standing by. 28 minutes. The tactical display showed nothing, just empty grid squares, red enemy markers still scattered from the artillery diversion, no blue friendlies. 28 minutes, 30 seconds. Still nothing. Reynolds shifted, started to speak. Blackwood raised one hand. Silence. 29 minutes. A blue marker appeared on the display. Grid 431, exactly where it was supposed to be. The room exploded with sound. Cheers, relief, disbelief. Willow didn't react, just keyed the channel to Shadow 2. Shadow 2, Viper Command. Welcome back. Demon Flight is inbound for covering fire. Proceed to extract Point Charlie. Medical standing by at LZ Falcon. You're going home. The voice that came back was rough, with emotion and exhaustion. Viper Command, Shadow 2. Riverbed confirmed, we're clear. All personnel accounted for. 4 wounded stable. And Lieutenant. Yes. You just saved 50 lives. Don't know who you are. Don't know where you came from, but you're a goddamn hero. Willow's eyes burned, but her voice stayed steady. Just doing my job, Shadow 2. Get to that extract point. Viper Command out. She lowered the handset, turned to face the room, every eye on her. Respect, shock, calculation, and from Colonel Reynolds something that looked almost like fear. Because in 18 minutes, the coffee girl had done what 15 experienced officers couldn't do. She'd seen 8 moves ahead. She'd coordinated 3 separate military assets. She'd trusted her knowledge over their experience. And she'd saved 50 lives. General Blackwood stepped forward, extended his hand. Outstanding work, Lieutenant Matthews. That was exceptional tactical coordination. She shook his hand. Thank you, sir. He leaned closer, voice quiet enough that only she could hear. We need to talk, my office, after debrief. There are things you should know. Then he addressed the room. Everyone back to stations. I want full after-action reports in 6 hours. Colonel Reynolds with me, now. Reynolds followed, his face ashen, his career probably over. And Willow stood in that war room, still holding the folded napkin with 7 coordinates that had just rewritten everything anyone thought they knew about her. Sergeant Bennett approached, smiled. So, coffee girl, want to tell me where you really learned to do that? Willow looked at her, at the first person who'd shown her any kindness in this place, at the person who'd believed her when no one else would. That's a longer story, and it starts 3 years ago with 8 Rangers who died because I wasn't in the room when decisions got made. I promised myself I'd never let that happen again. So I studied every map, every tactic, every failure and success. I made myself ready for the moment when I'd be in the room and lives would depend on whether I knew what I was doing. And now 50 men are going home to their families. That's all that matters. But that wasn't all, not nearly all. Because General Blackwood wanted to talk, and men like him didn't ask for private conversations unless something big was about to change. Something that would prove tonight wasn't the end of anything. It was just the beginning. 48 hours later, Willow sat in General Blackwood's office. Wood paneling, American flag in the corner, photographs of past operations covering the walls, and the general himself, 4 stars gleaming, watching her with eyes that had seen 36 years of war. You studied Soviet maps from 3 years ago, he said. Not a question, a statement. Yes, sir. Why? She met his gaze. Because 8 Rangers died on my watch. Different operation. I was intel support. They needed extraction options. I provided what I had. It wasn't enough. They died. I promised myself I'd never be unprepared again. So you memorized Soviet topographical data for the entire Afghan theater. Yes, sir. That's excessive. That's necessary. Blackwood leaned back, studied her. You have a gift, Lieutenant. Tactical coordination at a level I've rarely seen. The ability to process multiple data streams simultaneously, to see patterns others miss, to calculate probabilities and make command decisions under pressure. Thank you, sir. It's not a compliment, it's an observation, and it presents me with a problem. Willow waited, hands folded in her lap, face neutral. You're wasted in intel support. You're wasted making coffee for officers too proud to recognize talent. You're wasted doing anything except tactical coordination at the highest levels. But there's a catch. Sir, you have zero command experience, zero field deployments, zero credentials that would justify promoting you to positions where you could actually use these skills. On paper, you're nobody, a low-level analyst who got lucky once. The words stung, but they were true. Yes, sir. So here's what I'm offering, off the books, completely deniable. We have operations that need tactical coordination that exceeds normal capabilities, complex multi-asset deployments, situations where seeing 8 moves ahead is the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. I'm putting together a team, small, elite, operating under deep cover, coordinating operations that officially don't exist. Willow's heart rate increased. You want me to coordinate Black Ops? I want you to be Ghost, the tactical coordinator no one knows exists, the voice in the darkness that tells teams exactly how to win, the person who studies every map, every scenario, every contingency so that when operators hit the ground, they have someone who's already planned for every possibility. That's not a normal career path, sir. Nothing about you is normal, Lieutenant. You memorized Soviet maps because 8 men died. You coordinated a 3-phase extraction while making coffee. You stood in front of a room full of senior officers and told them they were wrong. Normal people don't do that. Exceptional people do. And I need exceptional. Willow sat in silence, processing, calculating. This was what she'd prepared for, what she'd studied for. The chance to make sure fewer people died because of bad tactical decisions. But it was also the end of any normal life. Ghost, operating in shadows, no credit, no recognition, just the weight of missions that couldn't fail. If I say yes, she said slowly, what happens to my current assignment? You transfer to a classified unit. Cover story, administrative reassignment to Pentagon Planning Division. Boring desk job. No one asks questions. Meanwhile, you're actually at a secure facility training with the best tactical coordinators in the world, learning every system, every protocol, every edge case, building on what you already know until you're the best there is. And Colonel Reynolds, under investigation for tactical incompetence that nearly killed 50 SEALs. He'll be quietly retired, won't trouble you again. Justice, swift and certain, but that's not what this was about. I need to think about it. You have 24 hours. After that, the offer expires. We move fast or not at all. Willow stood, saluted, left the office. 24 hours to decide if she'd spend the rest of her career in the shadows, saving lives no one would know about, making decisions no one would credit, being Ghost. She walked through the base, past the Tactical Operations Center where she'd been humiliated, past the coffee station where she'd folded napkins with military corners, past the quarters where she slept alone and dreamed of 8 Rangers who died because she hadn't been good enough. Her phone buzzed, text message from Sergeant Bennett. Heard through grapevine that general wants to talk to you about something big. Whatever it is, you'd be amazing at it. You saved 50 men. You have a gift. Don't waste it. Willow stared at the message, at the word gift, at the certainty that some people were built to carry weight others couldn't bear. She'd spent 3 years preparing for one moment, and that moment had proven she could do things other people couldn't do, see patterns they missed, make decisions they hesitated on, save lives they would have lost. What was the point of that preparation if she didn't use it? She opened her secure email, typed a response to General Blackwood. Sir, my answer is yes. When do I start? The response came back in under a minute. Tomorrow, 600, pack light. You won't need much where you're going. Welcome to the shadows, Ghost. Ghost, not Lieutenant Matthews, not Coffee Girl, not the woman who'd been dismissed and mocked and told to keep her mouth shut. Ghost, the tactical coordinator who never failed. 3 years of studying maps, 3 years of carrying guilt, 3 years of preparing for a moment that would justify everything. And now, a lifetime of moments, each one an opportunity to make sure fewer people died, fewer families grieved, fewer operators came home in flag-draped caskets. She packed that night, one duffel bag, uniforms, personal items, a photograph of 8 Rangers who died 3 years ago, men she'd never met but whose names she'd memorized, whose families she'd researched, whose graves she'd visited. They deserved better. They deserved someone who'd been prepared, someone who could have saved them. She couldn't save them, but she could save others. At 600, a unmarked vehicle arrived. No insignia, no identification, just a driver who nodded once and opened the door. Willow climbed in, watched the base disappear in the rear window, the place where she'd been nobody, the place where she'd proven she was somebody, the place she was leaving behind. The facility was 3 hours away, underground, classified. The driver said nothing during the entire trip, just drove, professional, silent. When they arrived, General Blackwood was waiting. "Welcome to Phantom Division," he said. "This is where we train the impossible, where we coordinate operations that can't fail, where we turn gifted individuals into legendary coordinators. You have 6 months. 6 months to learn everything we can teach you. Then you're operational. 6 months to go from Lieutenant Matthews to Ghost, from analyst to legend." "What if I don't make it through training?" she asked. Blackwood smiled, thin, knowing. "You already made it through. Everything from here is just refinement. You have the gift. We're just going to sharpen it until it cuts like a blade." The training was brutal. 18-hour days, tactical scenarios that twisted into nightmare complexity, multi-front operations, asset coordination across continents, situations where one wrong decision killed hundreds. She failed often spectacularly. And she learned obsessively, relentlessly. Her instructors were the best, operators who'd coordinated missions in every theater, tacticians who'd written the manuals on modern warfare, intelligence specialists who could read satellite imagery like novels. They pushed her, broke her, built her back stronger. And slowly the gift that had saved 50 SEALs became something sharper, more precise, more deadly. She learned to coordinate drone strikes and ground assaults simultaneously, to manage intelligence from 6 sources and synthesize it in real time, to see not just 8 moves ahead, but 20, 30, to play chess with lives on the board and never lose. At month 4 they gave her a live operation, hostage rescue in Somalia, 8 operators, 12 hostages, unknown number of hostiles, urban environment, civilian population. She coordinated from the operations center. Voice calm, decisions instant, 3-phase assault, diversion, breach, extract, 12 hostages recovered, 8 operators home safe, 0 casualties. Perfect execution. Her instructor, a colonel with 30 years of special operations experience, looked at her after the mission debrief. "You're ready," he said. "For what?" "For everything." At month 6 she stood in front of General Blackwood again, but different now, harder, sharper, certain. "Your cover is established," he said. "Lieutenant Willow Matthews assigned to Pentagon Planning Division. Boring desk job. No one asks questions. Your real assignment is tactical coordinator for Phantom Division operations. You'll coordinate missions across every theater. You'll work with SEAL teams, Delta operators, CIA assets, foreign intelligence. You'll be the voice they trust when everything goes wrong. You'll be Ghost." "Understood, sir." "One more thing." He handed her a folder, classified markings, eyes only. "This is your first major operation, Neptune Spear, high-value target, Pakistan. Coordination complexity exceeds anything we've attempted. Failure is not an option. Success changes the world. She opened the folder, read the first page. Her hands trembled just slightly. Because this wasn't just an operation. This was history. When, she asked. 3 months. You have 3 months to plan every detail, every contingency, every failure point. When those operators go into Pakistan, you're going to make absolutely certain they come home. All of them. Understood? Yes, sir. Ghost was operational. And the world would never know her name. But the people she saved would go home to their families. And that was all that mattered. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts.